Winter warmers. We've got a cracking campfire back here. So today we're going to do a traditional roast beef in a camp oven. We're going to address some of the mistakes that people commonly make using a camp oven, and I'm going to show you how to avoid them. Alright guys, so I just got a mirepoix here. It's just rough cut vegetables, carrot, onion, celery, and I've got some leek in there as well. Some potatoes we're going to roast off in the camp oven as well. And we've got some mustard and some jackalope rub here we're going to put on the beef. First of all, we're going to cut the beef down, because one of the big mistakes people make is they overload their camp oven. And if your meat's touching the edge of it, it's going to cook a lot faster. It's going to cook almost like a steak seals on a grill. So you want to make sure that the meat's not touching the edges wherever possible. So we're going to cut this down, rub it up, and then go take it over to the fire. All right, so I got the Bolar blade here from Super Butcher. Perfect cut for roasting. As I said, it's just a little bit too big, so I'm going to cut it down. I'm also going to trim it up a bit, get rid of some of that silver skin. All right, so I know my camp oven's about this big. So I'm going to take this tail piece off and then trim off some of the silver skin around it. And this piece you can just dice up for a casserole later on. All right, so you just want to find any of that silver skin like that and just trim that off. Just because it's a roast and you want to slice it and that stuff doesn't really cook out. Top's not too important because there's a little bit of fat there and we want that. But anything that's sticking out, just trim that back. I'm just going to coat this in a little bit of mustard. I always like to use mustard to sort of act as a glue when I'm rubbing my beef with a rub. Just something that's going to help it stick. And this seeded mustard from Berenberg's got a lovely flavour. So I'm just going to spread that all over it and then dust it with some rub, and we'll take it over to the fire. All right, so just a nice liberal coating. All sides. And that jackalope rub with that seeded mustard, it'll be amazing. If you're dealing with a big piece of meat like this and you can't really hold it while you're doing two things, just chuck it in your hands, rub it on the edge, that way you can sort of get that coverage everywhere. You're not wrestling with a big piece of meat like that. All right, she's good to go. I'll meet you over the fire. All right guys, we're down by the fire now. Like any oven, the campfire needs to be preheated, so I've had it on there for about 15 minutes. It is all metal, so it won't be like your oven at home. It won't take as long. 15 minutes should be about right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the camp oven off, because you don't cook with the fire, you cook with the coals. So we'll move this here. All right, so I've got a nice bed of coals here now. That's going to heat from underneath. We'll put that camp oven back on here. And that's going to give us our heat from the bottom. All right guys, it's important what oil you pick. If you use an olive oil in this application, it's going to get it too hot. It's going to burn and taste dirty. So I've just got a vegetable oil here. It's got a better flash point and it's not going to taste bad if it flares up. See, that's quite hot. Get a real fast sear on that. All sides. And you can see that I've cut that down so there's enough room around it. It's not going to touch the edges. All right, so just a nice sear on all edges. All right, now we're going to rip that out. We're going to put our mirepoix on the bottom. The reason we're going to do that is because the heat is predominantly coming from the bottom and then later on the top, we need to lift the roast up. Now you can get a grate for this that'll lift it off as well, but we're going to use the vegetables as well. All right, so I've just put the mirepoix on the bottom there, that rough cut veg, and you can see how it's not going to let the meat touch the bottom. So I've got a real nice insulation there. Just going to drop that back on. And a touch more of the seasoning just on the top. Put the lid back on. All right. Now, one of the biggest mistakes people make when they use a camp oven is they overload it with coals. You want to keep the inside at about 150 degrees, like you would if you were roasting any roast in your oven at home. Start out hot and then maintain it at like a low 150, 160. So we're just going to put a light coverage of coals. We'll check that in about half an hour, just to make sure that the coals are still hot. If they're not, scoop them off, put a fresh set on. It's better to add than it is to overload. All right, it's been cooking for about 2 hours. Just going to take it out of the pot now and just rest it for another 20 minutes and then we'll carve it. Oh, look at that. It's got a nice crust on it. Oh, it's cooked up beautifully. It's got an internal temp on it of about 65, 66 when we took it off. So it'll rest up nice for the next 20 minutes and then we'll carve it up. All right, Bolar blade, camp oven roast. I've had it resting for about half an hour. I got the opportunity to make a gravy out of the pan juices from the camp oven. Also had some time to do some Hasselback potatoes, some peas. So we got a full camp style roast. All right, so I'm just gonna carve this straight down. See how she went. Nice and crunchy, nice bark on that. Still nice and moist on the inside. Right, there you have it. Camp oven bolar blade roast. Camp oven gravy.